Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Out of the Group Power Hour, Sour Power Hour, powered by toxic waste, hazardously sour candy. I am Eric Eastep, joined by Brennan Poole to my... Oh wait, I forget when I edit this. So you can be on my right or my left. I'm pointing at him somewhere. This is like have you seen that like meme, the Brady Bunch meme, where like Usher thinks he's in the middle of the grid? He's like looking at everyone, but they actually put him like off to the side. That's how I feel right now. I'm like, yeah, Brennan's all around me. No, I'm like way over here. Anyway, welcome to Power Hour, folks. We've got a very powerful hour of racing content ahead for you guys. Ryan Preece joins us in a few minutes. RFK Racing driver, off to a hot start. His first year with Roush. We'll get to hear his racing story momentarily. Brandon, do you like the fit? I just realized.
Dude, I love it.
Got the official Sour Power Hour merch, really representing here.
Everyone's going to want more shirts, man.
We got to make that happen. We absolutely have to. The demand is there. I will will it into existence. Brendan, you're representing the 44 bunch atop your head right now, and you guys are on a little bit of a heater right now. Since our last show, top 5 finish at Martinsville. You earned 8 stage points at Darlington just last weekend. You have an average finish of 16th since Daytona. Pretty damn good for your Alpha Prime racing team. You just won the Throwback Scheme fan vote once again. Things seem to be going pretty well for the 44 bunch. You're in the Dash for Cash at Bristol this coming weekend. Dude, how have the last few weeks been? We haven't done a full show in a little bit of time.
You've touched on it a little bit there. My team's just done a great job since Daytona. And I think our worst finish is 22nd over the last 7 weeks, which was a strategy call. So I'm just proud of them. They're giving me really fast race cars, and they're well prepared, and we're executing on race days and not making any mistakes. And that's important in our situation. We pretty much have to be perfect to contend, because we don't have, all of the tools and resources that the bigger teams have. So for us, it's been a lot of fun to go out there and beat those guys. And with a lot less money and totally different circumstances. And I think that's what's so cool about my guys is we go into every race weekend and we don't care about the circumstances. We just simply do not care what we don't have. We focus on what we do have, making it the best possible race car we can, and then going out and executing and not making any mistakes. And we prepare and go into each race weekend, and we're there to win, and we do the best job that we can for that. And Frank Kerr, my crew chief, has just done a great job, and my cars are just driving really, really well. But man, it's been so much fun. I didn't even know that I qualified for the Dash for Cash. I didn't even know Martinsville was a Dash for Cash qualifying race. Like I remember, on those last few laps being sort of in a position. I think I restarted 7th or something at the end, and thinking, man, and I had a top 10 car all day, and just thinking, man, maybe something here could go. I might get lucky here. Maybe I can win the race. As crazy as those Martinsville races are at the end,
yeah. It was crazy.
So I feel like if I could have just been like one row, like maybe if I could have restarted 5th, or the 00 got down in front of me, and that was kind of ultimately what put me where I was, and the 00 was behind the 21, and he ended up finishing 2nd. So then I was 3 wide across the line, and I remember getting out of the car, and Ryan Pastana, our team's designer and does all of our social media and stuff, came up to me. He's like, "Man, you qualified for the Dash for Cash," and I was like, "What?" I didn't even
the who
know.
Now.
Yeah, okay. So that was pretty cool, and obviously it's a big moment for our team. It was Alpha Prime's highest finish ever, and then their first time in the Dash for Cash. So it's been awesome, and so we're headed to Bristol and have a shot at $100,000. We got to beat 3 guys. I feel like we just need to have another good handling race car and make good decisions and be good on pit road, be good on restarts, make the right choices, play the game and put ourselves in position for it to go our way. And if we're able to do that, we'll have a shot at it. But yeah, it's certainly been pretty great last 7 weeks.
Yeah. Are y'all bringing anything a little extra to Bristol? Because you're going up against, I pulled this up because this is a Phoenix Championship 4 preview, if you ask me. Justin Allgaier, Sheldon Creed, Austin Hill, Brennan Poole. Some tough guys to beat. A break or two goes your way. It is Bristol after all. Then you could be in the catbird seat. But do you guys have anything extra, or is it just it's going to be the same old 44 team that's been solid lately?
Yeah, it's the same thing. It actually is my Martinsville car. So as soon as Martinsville ended, Frank...
That thing's still in one piece? I think you might have the only car still in one piece.
Listen, my car was totally fine. You guys know about... everyone knows that we had a meeting at Darlington and all that stuff. It was out in the media. I'm like,
You
Austin
guys
Hill
have the
was in there.
meeting. Yeah, you just sit
Yeah, I
back.
was like, my car was clean, man. I don't know I didn't run over anybody, anyways, yeah, we had to put we actually didn't even have to put a new nose on my Martinsville car, where they just kind of repaired it, where they're like a few bumps, into people. They had to repair a little bit of the nose. It's the same front nose
Oh boy.
from Martinsville. Yeah, it's been a really good short track car for us, and was really good at other places too, like Phoenix last year. So I feel pretty good about it, but no, we're just kind of doing the same thing, no leased engine this weekend, none of the extra stuff. I mean, we're just gonna go try to take care of business and do what we've been doing and try to stick to our game plans. It's nice when you got $100,000 on the line to go into the weekend and not have any unknowns. So we're just doing the same things that we've always done. And to be honest with you, man, it's like, yeah, it's cool, and I know there's going to be some media attention around it. But it's just another race for me. I got to go out there and do my job. And my goal is to go out there and try to run top 15 and run all the laps and stay out of trouble. Maybe pull some strategy to get some more stage points. That's been something that we've really focused on this year. I already have more stage points this year by quite a bit than I had all of last year. So we're working hard at that. And so I think everything's going in the right direction. And like I said, we're not too far out of the playoffs, and I really want to push those guys hard and keep the pressure on them. Maybe make some mistakes, and we
Yeah.
can get in there.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Bristol's gonna be a lot of fun to watch. I can't wait. I'm gonna be pulling for you. I know I sound like a total homer, but like we do a show together. I got to If I'm gonna root for anyone, I got to root for Brennan here. You mentioned that drivers only meeting before Darlington. We've heard a little bit. We've heard that Austin Hill, somewhat ironically, was one of the more vocal drivers in that meeting. Who else? Did anybody else sort of step up, and who did the most talking? Can you let us into that
Yeah.
post Martinsville meeting a little bit?
Well, Justin Allgaier being the veteran of the series, right? I mean, he's been in it even longer than I've been in it, and I felt like he pretty much covered everything that needed to be said. I didn't want to talk. It's just like, nothing affected me at Martinsville at all. I had a great, wonderful day. I
You
didn't
were like,
run
more of
anybody over.
those,
No one ran.
please.
Yeah, like I was so like, what am I gonna say, right? I mean, I
Yeah.
I think everyone that races. There are a few young kids, but everyone's an adult, right? Like this is the second highest form of motorsports in this country. And the drivers, they've all gotten here. They've all won big races at some point in their career. It's like, they need to handle it themselves. And I think for me, that was the biggest takeaway is just wanting everybody to race a little bit smarter and race other people how
Did
you want
you
to be raced.
did you get the impression? I don't know if anyone from NASCAR did much talking, but did you get the
Mhm.
impression that they are like open to penalizing rough driving more, or are they really trying to get all the drivers to settle amongst
Yeah. I,
themselves?
I think they want the drivers to settle it amongst themselves. I think they
Okay.
will step in and handle it if they need to. That was kind of the point
Uh,
made to us. Like,
the Sammy
hey,
Smith penalty kind of set that point, I guess.
yeah, it's like, listen, we don't want to have to do this, but we will do it if it gets out of control, and they will have to make some difficult calls that they don't want to make. So it's
Yeah.
like, take care of it yourself. You guys know how to race, and so I think I like that part of it, just being like, okay, it's on everyone in this room that's in one of these race cars to race, the way it should be. So I thought it went pretty well, all things
Do you,
considered.
do you think there'll be another one before the playoff Martinsville race? Like instead of being reactive, do you think they'll try to be proactive that weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not totally sure on that, right? Because you get down to the playoffs and you win and you're in,
It's
I mean, I think
it
if you
could it's
take
gonna
it,
be desperate. Yeah.
desperate moves happen, and sometimes they go too far, right? Like as a driver, I've been in these situations, right? I've moved people out of the way for wins. I've been totally flat out destroyed on the white flag lap to win races. So like Toledo Arc Race 2011, thanks Ty Dillon. It's like I've been a part of it. It's
I'll
like
cross him off the future
yeah.
guest list. No.
So like, for me, I think what happens is the adrenaline gets so high, right? Your heart rate is everyone's probably experienced it at some point in their lives, whether they were nervous or whatever, or in another sport, where those nerves and that adrenaline is so high that when you go to make a move, it's just done. It goes too far, right? And
Sure.
you're carrying all this. You're driving a machine, like they just overdo it. Maybe sometimes it's not even super intentional to make contact, but maybe not as bad as it was, right? But they just knew they had to get there. So then you overdo it. I think that that's what happens a lot of the times. Um, Unfortunately, at Martinsville this year, I think it was just like way too like never.
At the
It
end.
was
Yeah.
just like deliberate kind of situation there. So, but for me, I still kind of stand by a lot of the other stuff that I saw at Martinsville, other than that last lap move. To me, it was like, well, it's kind of like typical short track racing. Guys are trying to make passes. Sometimes it's a little aggressive, and then another person doesn't quite know, or the move's done late, and it's like, and they beat and bang, and someone spins out, and you're like, okay. I mean, that's just kind of
Sure.
part of it, and I think the fans do enjoy that part, that beating and banging, just not sort of what happened on the last corner of that race.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I agree. We're going to bring Ryan Preece in here in just a few moments, but Brennan, there's one more kind of hot topic I want to at least get
Okay.
your take on. Disclaimer, none of us here are legal experts, but it feels like every month there's a new lawsuit involving some NASCAR Cup Series teams. I believe now there are 4 Cup Series teams embroiled in some form of lawsuit.
Yeah.
The latest is Legacy Motor Club. Suing RFK Racing over apparently a charter transaction gone awry. They apparently were in agreement to sell the charter that's currently being leased, ironically, to our upcoming guest Ryan Preece and RFK Racing, but Rick Ware is now saying they don't want to sell the charter because the dates were mixed up. Legacy thought the deal was for 2026. Rick Ware thought it was for 2027. Legacy says they signed the paperwork and it's a done
Yeah.
deal. That's why there's a lawsuit. So we obviously don't know exactly what the outcome there is going to be, but I just found it interesting that Legacy Motor Club, who's run better this year, John Hunter's been top 20 in points, Jones has had a few decent flashes. They've taken a step forward this season, but I was a little surprised still that Legacy Motor Club at this stage is looking to add a third full-time car. We've obviously seen other teams that are kind of in that same, let's say, same size, same scale, same budget as a Legacy, like Aspire has 3 charters now, 2311 has 3 charters, Trackhouse 3 charters, Front Row 3 charters, like RFK leasing a chart, but they have 3. Like 3 has become sort of the sweet spot. So I guess that part makes sense, but I was trying to figure out, is there a driver they want to put in that third Legacy car? Is it possible to get Corey Heim over from 2311? They're all in the Toyota family, sort of, but like, is there someone else in mind? Is this more a play to attract one of the next new OEMs? A lot of talk about
Yeah.
Dodge re-entering the sport in the coming years. Honda is always sort of on the fence. Like, I want to know what your takeaway is. I don't know if you've heard anything in the garage. Like, why do you think Legacy Motor Club wants a third charter now? Why not 2027? They're like, nope, 2026. We want it now. We got to
Yeah.
get this ball rolling. What do you think? What's your
Well,
theory?
it could be down to sponsorship money. They have some big partnerships over there. They're certainly trying to grow the team, and they have some great leaders in place. I mean, Jimmy Johnson and Matt Kenseth and Trevor Bayne, like good guys, former drivers involved in that program. I mean, I think it's cool. I mean, I would love an opportunity to drive for them, right? I mean, that would just be absolutely incredible. I mean,
Be a good
I think,
situation for just about anybody.
yeah,
I mean, it's not
yeah.
like they seem to be on the up and up. They obviously have a Toyota connection. They don't have the JGR. They don't have access to the JGR database like 2311 does, but they're obviously building a decent notebook themselves. I think it's just interesting if there is a chance of a new manufacturer jumping in, any of these teams, even RFK Racing, who they're so closely tied to Ford, there's been reports that Keselowski's talked to Dodge in the past. Like,
Yeah.
I just think any of these decent teams would jump at the opportunity to be number one with a new OEM. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
JGR back in the day, they weren't the first team to switch to Toyota when they first entered the sport almost 20 years ago, but they were kind of the first big established team to join forces with Toyota, and clearly it worked out pretty well for them. So I
Yeah.
think a lot of these teams like a Legacy could look at it that way. I don't know if you look at it that way. You might be right that they just have big sponsor money and want to get that third car when they can.
Yeah, and I think I mean all these teams are trying to grow and grow their I mean it's like I mean the charters are they're treating them like franchises. I know like so many people say that's not really what it is, but
Yeah.
I think yeah, I mean it's just an opportunity to guarantee a third car in for every single race, and that might be something there. I mean usually if you're going to spend that much money on something, it's pretty important. Like they need it. So something's going on there. I'm not totally sure what that could be. It could be manufacturer related. I feel like Toyota would want to keep them in that camp because it's not like there's a lot of Toyotas as it is.
It's
So
true.
I don't know, a lot of interesting things at play, and yeah, going to be interesting to see how all that stuff plays out, and when they get that charter or how that gets figured out. And that's interesting because if it's the charter that's leased to RFK, well, then what do they do with the 60?
They'd have to then lease
You
the
need another
51 car charter.
or
Like
some. I mean, I don't
that's
know, right?
I,
It's crazy.
that's why I wanted to ask you, because I know you know Rick Ware pretty well. You've raced for Rick Ware in the Cup Series in recent seasons. I mean, we obviously don't know where the actual conflict and disagreement is, who's right, who's wrong, et cetera, et cetera. But like, it sounds like Rick Ware is open to either next year or the year after selling one of his 2 charters. It sounds like they'd like to at least keep one for the time being for Cody Ware or whoever drives the 51. But like, I don't know. In your experience, do you feel like Rick Ware could maybe end up diverting more of his attention to the other race teams and other series he's involved in? Because it's not just NASCAR. We know Rick Ware for NASCAR, but he does sports cars. He's done a lot outside of stock car racing. Like, what do you feel the future of Rick Ware Racing looks like if you had to guess?
Yeah, I mean, on the NASCAR side of things, I'm not totally sure, but I do know that he really has been loving the drag racing, and we've often talked a lot about that with him. But I think, yeah, his program is really just unbelievable that he's in all these different forms of motorsports and he's having success in all of them, really. And so I think, yeah, it's just going to be interesting to see what happens and what Rick decides to do. I know Rick's a really smart guy, and he's got smart people around him too, with Robbie Benton being the team president. I think that's what his title is. But
Yeah.
Robbie, don't get mad at me. I'm trying to say the
I think
right
Tommy
things.
Baldwin is he the competition
The competition director.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just like great people over there, man. And I love all those guys. So it's just going to be really interesting to see where they go and what happens with that charter and what Rick decides to do. But I know whatever they do, I mean, they've definitely got a plan, and just really really smart people over there. And I've really enjoyed my time racing for Rick, and racing with when Tommy Baldwin was there when I drove those races a year ago, 2 years ago, and I've known Robbie Bitton for 12, 13, 14 years, you know.
Wow.
So yeah, just great people, and I know they're going to make the right decisions and continue to build more success over there for RWR.
And worst comes to worse, Legacy's offering them $45 million reportedly
That's
for that
crazy.
charter. That money could go a long way in wherever.
It'd be real hard for me to say no, but I mean, I'm sure, like I said, they definitely got some sort of a plan that they're working toward.
Yeah, really interesting stuff going on behind the scenes, both regarding the future of the charter system itself with the whole 2311 front row lawsuit, and then between an individual charter dispute. It's always topsy-turvy in the world of NASCAR, both on and off the track. Brennan, let's invite Ryan Preece onto the show. It's been fun to watch Ryan this whole season. Moves over from Stuart Haas as they were evolving, let's say, goes over to RFK Racing in a brand new 3rd car and has been on a good roll lately. Some top 10 finishes, had speed at Darlington. Let's see what Ryan Preece has to say about this season, his journey to get to this point, and maybe where he's going next. Let's bring Ryan Preece onto Power Hour. Brennan, we are now joined by RFK Racing driver Ryan Preece. Ryan joins us here on Power Hour. It's great to see you, man. It's been a great stretch of races for you. 3 straight top 10 finishes. You qualified outside the front row at Darlington just this past weekend. Life seems to be pretty good. Seems like the transition to Roush is going pretty smoothly to start this year. How's your season been so far? How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Yeah, thanks for having me on. And, this morning I keep a notepad or a note inside my phone, like most people with an Apple phone, right? You have notes, and I keep track. I keep track of qualifying position and race finish. And I was going through this year, and to be honest with you, I feel, as a racer, I want to win races. So unless I have a 1 column, in there, I'm not happy. But as far as being a new team, transitioning to a new team, this entire group being new, I feel like we're building something really good, and the reason I say that is if you looked at, we talk about past statistics, right? But when you look at our first, however many races and you add in the Clash, outside of Daytona, I feel like, man, Coda was going to be I felt a top 10 or top 15. We had a bit of a fuel problem there, but like we've had some solid days, and even the days that haven't necessarily started well, or we built on them. So I feel pretty good, and I feel excited going into we have Bristol this week and Talladega, but that stretch in May, June, July, August, that's the grueling one. That's the one that you really hope that your stuff's consistent and fast, and you have a great group around you. That's the stretch I'm ready to really wear people out with.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to bounce around a bit here, Ryan. I want to go back to the first conversations you had with the folks at RFK Racing. I had the chance to talk to Brad recently, and he raved about your work ethic, talked about getting to race you, obviously, for years. He knew the kind of driver, the kind of potential that you had. So what were those initial conversations like when you were first considering or being considered by Roush for the 60 car?
For me, it was, I hope this works out. Because I'm the type of driver that when I put my eggs in a basket, I'm putting them all in there. There's no turning back, and I think we showed that in years ago with how I even got to this point. But for me, when the conversations were being had, Brad, I had been racing against him. I never really sat down and talked with him or anything. And much like I was talking to Brennan a little bit ago about as a race car driver. When I'm racing against you, I don't feel like we can all really be friends, because you can't think about that friendship and what it takes to win a race for you and the group around you. So so that's kind of like I was hoping it was all going to come to fruition, and it did. And really, I think the biggest thing when I came over here to RFK was having an open mind and really letting Brad guide the ship and having, seeing his perspective on race teams and race weekends and how he prepares for them and certain things that they, that we value here at RFK. And, I feel like it's really helped me as a race car driver. I feel like, as far as racecraft and all those other things, I've always had the potential to do it. I mean, I've showed it, with anything that I've ever raced. It's just getting into the right opportunity with the right people and honestly the right coaching around you to really push yourself. So, for me, I'm thankful for this opportunity, because if I had to move to Connecticut after those those few years, it's just from a race car driver perspective, I moved down here because I wanted to win races and chase after championships, and that goal wasn't done. So, it's great to have this opportunity and really see the progress that we've had.
Well, it's always a fight. And I mean, Ryan talked about a couple of things there. And just like, yeah, I mean, there's only so many spots on Sunday and even Saturdays, right? There's only so many seats. And Brad told me one time, hey, like everyone's fighting for a piece of that pie. And for me in my career, it's just like, make sure you get one kind of deal. So I've kind of always lived by that. But I kind of wanted to ask you, Ryan, about, I know your journey a little bit. We've talked over the years. So just the decision making that you made from the start and sort of learning how the business and the sport worked and making those decisions that ultimately led to you, only running a few races, but in a top car, winning, getting another opportunity, getting opportunities to race on Sunday, and sort of going from the JTG situation to Stuart Haas and now being at RFK. Like, can you kind of just like talk that through that journey a little bit and how you've ended up here with this awesome opportunity?
Yeah. And it's really different, right? Most people, they start in the truck series, they, eventually go to Xfinity, and then they go to Cup. My path to where I am is completely different from many. It was, I raced in Connecticut. I raced, at weekly racetracks between Stafford, Thompson, Riverhead, and Long Island. I raced the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour, along with many other modified racing series. And I was racing for 4 or 5 different owners, and I was racing 4 to 5 times a week and just winning, and I'm starting with this because really the 2008 to 2010 era laid the foundation for who I was as a race car driver. People, by the time of 2012, 2013, I had won a NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour championship. I won 2 track championships at Thompson. I won a track championship at Stafford. And these aren't just like, you're showing up and racing against 15 guys. Like, you were racing, they were some of the toughest weekly short tracks in the country. And, we were we were racing for the Wheeling All-American Series championship, which being in Connecticut and in the Northeast, it was different and tough to try and go up against the guys here in the Southeast. And we ranked really high on that. So for that, that helped get me an opportunity with Tommy Baldwin. In 2013, I did one Xfinity race. And for me, it was always like, hey, I'm winning, 15, 20 races a year. I'm winning championships. I'm waiting for this phone call. And that phone call wasn't coming. And Tommy called me and said, hey, hey, let's do this one Xfinity race. And that one Xfinity race was actually supposed to be done by Corey LaJoy. That ended up, I think he did something else, and that's how it started. And then, 2014, I did 2 Xfinity races, one being New Hampshire and then one being Phoenix. And then in 2015, I did 5 Cup starts, one for Tommy and then 4 for Premium Motorsports. And the reason being is I didn't have, a big sponsor. I didn't have funding to go and get an opportunity and, at the time, in somebody's truck or somebody's Xfinity car. I didn't, we didn't have that. I was racing. I was making a living, just for an example, for if I raced on a Friday night and I won, it was $400. It was a lot of money for a 22, 23-year-old, right? So, I wanted to win because I wanted to get paid. I needed money. And, and then we go, so fast forward. Tommy helped me get through what NASCAR has is the approval process so that you're allowed to go race. If you're in the Cup Series, you can go race, Daytona or anything. So I end up doing all that. And 2016 comes. Tommy's kind of like, hey, if you want to take this next step, you gotta do this, and you're approved. So he had me meet with Johnny Davis. I had some local funding from Connecticut, and I pulled everything together and I ran the full season. And when I went down there, it was, hey, I win, all this stuff, and I'm going to go into this, and it might take some time, but we'll get there, and quickly I found out there's so much more to it than you as a race car driver. There's, resources and all those other things, so at the end of that season, I was racing for a guy in the Wheel Modified Tour, and he said to me, hey, you can keep chasing this, or I'll pay you. You can work full time for me. You can drive the car, race for percentage, and you can move back up here. So I packed my bags and I said, I'm moving back to Connecticut, and I really at the time had no intentions of coming back. And then, so I remember I was getting ready for Speed Weeks in the end of January or whatever it was. And, I got a call from a friend, and that friend whose race shop I lived in at the time, before I moved back. And he said, hey, Carl Edwards is retiring. You might want to call this guy from Gibbs to see if there's some opening there. So I made that call, and I found out what it would take, sponsorship wise, to get those opportunities. And I did everything I could to get that money, right? To get those sponsors and the support. And when we got really close to time, I was a little short. And as everybody hears, I had to borrow $80,000. I didn't mortgage a house. I borrowed it from somebody, and paid them back. But that was the moment that changed my life, because my wife and I, when we got married in 2017, she was a school teacher. I was a race car driver that, 1099, and, as far as reporting a actual paycheck every week, my paycheck depended on how I did, so I couldn't, sometimes it was good, sometimes it wasn't. So we had to get a mortgage in her name. Even me, as far as having a credit card, I had to open a credit card to get my Xfinity license. So,
Wow.
That was more or less those races. And even now I think back to it, because I beat Kyle Benjamin by 3/4 of a car length, where I got a bunch of green, white checkers, where we were struggling. Tires were wore out, and, we did everything right, and we won that race, and that changed my life. That ultimately got me a couple more opportunities. And then, I remember I was taking my brother to a bachelor party, or not a bachelor party, but we were taking him out because he was getting married and we were about to go golfing. And that was when I got a call for 2018. And it was in November that I would be running 15 races for Gibbs that year in Xfinity. And, it's just one thing that snowballed after the next. But what I'm getting at is the fact that I was known in the garage as, hey, he wins races, at this level. It's kind of always helped me get those next opportunities, right? And so yeah, it's definitely been one hell of a journey.
I've got so many questions after kind of hearing that, because I knew the bullet points, but I didn't know like the domino effect of Carl Edwards leaving and there being a gap at Gibbs suddenly. Okay, that's an opportunity for you to join. I had no idea about that. Would you say then that ultimately that phone call or the decision to go race part-time at Gibbs, was that the best decision you've made in your racing career?
For me? Yeah. For me, and I feel like everybody's career is different, right? For me, I felt like I just needed the right piece of the puzzle. I needed the right company, the team. At that point in time, when you looked at Gibbs, I remember in 2016, I was watching them qualify first, second, third weekly. And Brennan, you can attest to this. Like their equipment was second to none, at the time. And so I felt like, hey, if I can get that opportunity, like, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that was probably the biggest decision of my life that helped get me to my, this point.
And it sounded like, there was a moment, it sounds like, right before then where you were like, all right, this NASCAR thing, it's this grind, it's not going to work. Let's go back to winning modifieds, being, like you said, like a regular working racer, a successful racer. So did you, as a young driver, did you always kind of hope to go NASCAR racing, or were you, excuse me, content racing modifieds in the Connecticut area? Like at what point did you look at NASCAR and say, I really want to try that?
Pretty much. So I loved racing, so what a lot of people that don't know is I actually raced, a little bit of midget stuff. I raced some NEMA, I raced, open wheel midgets, when I was younger, but being from Connecticut, modifieds were the easiest thing to run, right? It was the closest thing. So to answer your question, yeah, I pretty much just loved racing. If I made it, I made it. If I didn't, I loved being competitive. I loved, the whole thing about it, outside of even just driving it. It was the working on the cars with your, my father, or the friendships that I built, the car builders. That was the thing, those are where all my memories came from. So the whole thing that set me on this journey and this chase for where I am today was basically, hey, I did this race in Xfinity. All right, well, I want to, it was like little bites, you know what I mean? And I want to keep going after it. And that's really ultimately, I don't even know how, but it was trying to win, and then us winning just set us off to the next thing. And so yeah, no, I mean, I just love the sport. I love all the life lessons that it teaches you. I like that it kept me out of trouble as a kid. That's always a good thing. And yeah.
That's great. That's great. Well, I'll jump forward a little bit here. When you're giving us your life career sort of timeline, you stopped just short of your time at JTG and then, of course, at Stewart-Haas. I want to ask you a little bit about your 2 years at Stewart-Haas Racing. When you first joined that team ahead of the 2023 season, did you have any idea like how that was ultimately going to end up?
No. What I will say is when I went into it, Chad Johnson was my crew chief, and him and we ran really well together with the truck series in the trucks, and he had cup experience, so this is the tough part. Chad and I loved working with him. He was somebody that I really enjoyed racing with. And at the end of the day, I think the biggest thing that fans don't quite understand is there's a lot of parts and pieces that go into this. And there's just so much to it. And ultimately it just didn't work out. But when we went out at the Clash and we almost won, I mean, realistically, I felt like we were going to win that race. If that fuel, we had a fuel pump go bad inside the fuel cell. And if that didn't happen, we were going to win that race. And then we started off really well the first few races. Now it didn't go my way. Daytona, we got wrecked after running really well and some of these other things. But, I felt like we started off really well. And for whatever reason, towards the May or June era, like everything was just kind of struggling. Chase was struggling. Eric ran pretty well. Everybody was so, we had our good runs and then we wouldn't. And the same thing with Kevin. Like, it was just trying to find your way.
Yeah, it was a tough year. I mean, anytime Kevin Harvick goes winless like that, there's got to be something, beyond the driver's control, I guess, there. Going up to 2024 now, I mean, y'all found out pretty early in the season that the team was, more or less shutting down, I guess. I remember Chase Briscoe talked about, like, the day the shop officially found out what was happening, he like immediately started making phone calls and texting people looking for, what else was maybe out there. Do you remember the day that you knew that the Stewart-Haas deal was not going to be there anymore? And what was your first step towards trying to, make something happen for 2025?
Yeah, I remember that day. For me, and I feel like, Brennan, you can attest to this too. Like, I mean, the majority of my career, you've never known what you're going to do. Stability is not a thing. So it'd be nice to have stability, but it didn't really I wouldn't say it didn't phase me. I have a family now. I have a daughter. I got my wife, and there's other things and responsibilities to think about. But for me, I was like, well, where am I going to end up? Where can I end up? Let's start looking at those things. And, I had a lot of things had to work out for me to ultimately, be in this situation. But I feel like it's a reflection on how I try to treat people. I always have the best of intentions, and I would say it's, at least for me, if you look at some of my partners like Mohawk and whatnot, and you always try to go above and beyond for people. And I feel like that's what's paid off for me is, having the relationships that I have, and, having this opportunity with RFK. There was at one point I was almost going to end up somewhere else. And, that was during the time where we had a really bad string of bad luck. It was Dover, Talladega or whatever it was in the month of May, and all the way leading up to when we shut down. The other team just kind of went silent, and it was like, well, okay, I maybe this isn't going to work out. And I remember, in July, August, I was looking at, possibly selling my property or my house here in North Carolina and moving back to Connecticut. So, yeah.
Brennan, I know you can speak to that lack of stability. It feels like so many drivers, Cup Xfinity trucks, it's 1-year deals. I know that's what you've had to deal with the past few seasons.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been in a situation in my entire career where I knew what I was doing the next year. So I 100% know there just isn't stability. And like Ryan says, like I wish there was some form of stability. It would make you feel a little bit better. But I think for me, like I've just lived one day at a time, one race at a time, and I just try to do the best job I possibly can, in those moments, and it's going to be what it's going to be. But I mean, yeah, I mean, what a crazy story, what a crazy whole situation that was over there. And again, I just want to say like how happy I am for you to be in a good situation, which from the outside looking in appears like you have some really good people around you who believe in you, and then that's it's showing in results on the racetrack. Because also, like, what people forget a lot of times, like you were talking about earlier, it's like it's not just me as a race car driver. Like, there's so many other people involved that help make this thing work. And if you don't have the right people around you, and everybody on your team doesn't have your back or believe in what you're trying to do, that everyone together can get the job done, then it can kind of like spiral out of control pretty quickly, which is something I've just learned over the last 10 years doing this. But I feel like, with where you're at and great owners and seems like great people around you, you're getting those results. And so it's really cool. It's really cool to see.
So it's funny that you say that, because to me, I think back to before people knew me at a national level, like the life lessons that I've learned, and I constantly think about them. Like even my days of JTG and then my days of SHR, there's always things that I could have done better, right? But the one thing that you touched on is about people around you, right? I learned this lesson that it's more than just you as a driver. It takes everything. Back in, I think it was 2013. When I'm telling you, I was winning races, we were getting poles, we were doing all this stuff. And then we go into August, we're leading the points, and it's a hot summer night. And I remember I finished second earlier here in the spring when it's nice and cool. And then it's August and I'm running 26th. I just won because I would run, 2 races in one day. I would run the Sunoco Modifieds, which was the weekly race division. And then I would run the tour race when the touring series was there. And I had just won the weekly race. And then I'm running 26th or whatever it was that night. And I got passed by a guy that's, he just enjoys racing. I'm in here swatting flies and he's just chilling, kind of going by me. And that was the day that made me think, how? I'm winning, and that was when I took a big interest in paying attention to what makes a car go fast. Why? And figuring it out for myself, because that led into me, in 2016, we took this tour owner's car in-house and I was doing it and I made a lot of mistakes, but I also figured a lot of things out in the meantime, and understanding how a car goes faster or some of the main hitters to be able to go and win. Now, that's also something that's gotten me in trouble because there's times where I know too much. So I would say one of the biggest things that I've done as a race car driver this year is when Derek we'll be starting to talk about geometry or whatever. I'll be like, nope, I'm out of here, guys. You go ahead. I'm going to shut up and drive. And, I feel like that's helped get me back to that mindset of, that 2010, 11, 12, 13, era of what can I do to make speed as a race car driver? But then if we get out there understanding, hey guys, let's sit down. Let's talk about this. And I feel like that's where Brad, has helped me as a race car driver, understanding how to deal with situations, but then also being teammates with Chris, being older and wiser now. How did Chris wax my ass, back when we were at JTG together? What can I do better to be more like him? So I feel like coming here, I've had way more of an open mind and, used all of life's experiences to be better as a driver.
Yeah, it's a team sport, and it seems like you're with a really good race team right now. So we'll kind of wrap up with this, Ryan. We've put together the pieces of your up and down, topsy-turvy racing past. I want to ask you about the future. You're 13th in points right now. What's it going to take for the 60 team to win a race, make the playoffs here in 2025?
Well, I would say usually it's qualifying better. Derek and I, we were just this past week going into Darlington. We're like, man, we could qualify like 10, 12. We could get a good pit selection. We'd be good. Just do everything right. Then we qualified second. I wish somebody had a video camera on his face, on my face in the car. Because, Brennan, you can speak to this. You lose confidence over time when you just continually, qualify bad or poor. Even though in the race you'd go and run well, it's just like, what am I doing? I don't understand. I feel like I just did everything right and it wasn't fast. And that's where there's a lot of things that go into it. But I feel like, I've done a better job in preparing this year into that. So to answer your question, it's qualifying better, which I feel like we've started to do a pretty good job of here. I've changed some of the preparation stuff on how I look at practice and what I need to do to help us understand where we need to be for Sunday. But then for us, man, we have a lot of drivers talk about puzzle pieces and having all the puzzle pieces. We have them. I feel like we're going to continue to work and make our cars faster. We have a solid pit crew. We have a great road crew, great bunch, and executing. That's what it comes down to. So I feel like it's going to happen for sure. It'd be nice if it could be Bristol or a short track in general. That'd be great to just get that first one. But, I used to not look forward to going to mile and a halves. Now I'm looking forward to going to mile and a half. So it's just like, I feel like it's coming. We just got to continue to keep grinding. Like, that's the thing is, a lot of people, they give up when they're so close and they stop pushing. You just got to keep pushing. Even when your mind tells you, hey, man, I can't push any harder, you just need to push.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, Bristol could be a great opportunity. RFK Racing has run well at Bristol. Correct me if I'm wrong. Were you top 10 there last fall in the 41 car? Shoot, man. Yep. All right. Bristol could be the week to get it done. This is exciting. Ryan Preece, really appreciate you joining us here on Power Hour. Thanks for telling your life story. Good luck this weekend. Good luck the rest of the season. We really appreciate your time, man.
Thanks, guys. Good luck this year, Brennan.
Thank you.
Once again, huge thank you to Ryan Preece for joining us. That was a super fun time. Brennan, it's time for our final segment of the show, the fan questions. Our last episode was a couple weeks ago, and we got many really good questions, I actually thought. And I've picked out a few here that we're going to do our best to answer. Let's jump right into this. Danny Alex 7152 asks, what would be the next silly season bombshell news you could see happening for next season?
Yeah, I know it's tough, and I don't know, like, I don't want to steal yours because I think we've talked about this a little bit before, but it's like almost like Denny Hamlin retires, maybe.
That would be a bombshell, yeah.
Right? That would be kind of surprising. I feel like there's not, like, I try to think of like the old, like the guys that have been around in the Cup Series for so long, like who is kind of going to be the next one out and who goes in. I have no idea, but I think that would be kind of crazy.
Denny would be interesting because we don't know exactly what his contract looks like. It sounds like he's on the last year of his deal. Progressive, from my understanding, only signed a 1-year deal. I mean, there's always a good chance they elaborate, they expand, and it becomes a deal for next season as well. But he gets paid top dollar, and it's difficult to piece together big sponsorship for top drivers like that. But he has just won back-to-back races. I think he's still hungry. If he wins the title, I could maybe see him walking away, but maybe that ignites a fire in him. I can still do it. Let's chase. I know he's chasing win records and stuff. He wants to be top 10 in wins. I forget exactly what number he has to get there. I think he has to get over 60. He's at 56, 57 right now. So yeah. I don't know exactly what drives Denny at this point. He's got a lot of other things pulling at his attention, of course. I think a lot of folks would look at Kyle Busch, who's also in a contract year with RCR. I don't think he's going to retire. And I also don't really think he's looking to go anywhere. I don't know that there's anyone out there that really is in a position to go get Kyle Busch. I think he's really trying to make RCR work. Was top 10, I believe, at Darlington this past week. Like, they've been okay to start this year. They don't look like a champ. Yeah, they don't look like a championship team, but Coda, they had probably the best car. Like, so they're still capable of putting it together in any given weekend. I think Hamlin and Busch will be obviously the biggest names we're watching this year. Daniel Suarez at Trackhouse, our amigo as well. I think got to mention him just because he's also in a contract year, only signed a 1-year extension. I know you know Daniel maybe a little better than I do. I don't know that when you've talked to him, if you've talked to him recently, but like that could be
interesting.
They got Zilich waiting in the wings, so you just never really know. But also, like, SVG is not impressed to start the year. We haven't gotten to many road courses yet, but like, I don't know. Trackhouse is in a weird spot. I just want to say,
I told you on that one.
He has been. I agree. I think I said on my other show that he would average a 28th place finish at the ovals. He's averaging like a 30th place finish right now. So he's a little worse than I would have thought, but you're right. It's been a difficult transition.
And then he's going to go win the next road course by like a full straightaway or something.
Yeah. That's what they signed up for. Good question though, Danny Alex. Next one. This one comes from Larson Racing Updates. Must be a huge Chase Elliott fan, I think, if you ask me.
Yeah, definitely.
I want to know what Brennan thought of the Rockingham test back in January, how the car felt, what was the feeling of being on the track, tire wear, etc., etc. That's a newly repaved Rockingham, correct? So was it as fast as everybody said it was?
Oh, it was fast, but like it was repaved, but it sat for, I don't know if it sat, is it a couple years?
It's been about 2 years.
2 years, yeah. So honestly, it did have some character to it, there was some fall off. I personally think it's going to put on an awesome race, but I also really, really like that racetrack. I've won there before a while back on the other surface, of course, but I just like that racetrack. I like the way it's the shape of it and the way it's laid out. It's very tricky. Off of turn two, it gets really sharp and narrow. The back straightaway is totally banked. You run into this really sharp turn three that's also kind of like tricky to like the way through there. I'm not going to give anything away on the show, but like it's tricky, and there's special ways you drive this track in order to make speed. So it has these crazy little characteristics, right? That just make it better for us as drivers to be able to have to move around, work, do different things to find lap time, and then also it's wearing out and there's some fall off. I think it's going to be, man, I think it's going to be awesome. There are some people there saying we're going to end up moving all the way up like to the wall. I don't think I don't think we'll get that high. I would that probably be good for me. I do like to run against the fence, but I don't think it's going to be quite that crazy. But yeah,
Is it?
I think it's going to be one of the best races of the year.
That'd be fun. Is it progressively banked a little bit?
It's just one. I mean, yeah, I mean maybe a little bit, but it's not. I
Not
don't want to
like
say anything wrong, but not like a Miami or it's not like flat at the bottom and then like really banked
yeah.
up. No, it's
I
still
drove
pretty
a
banked all the way around.
I drove a rental car on it a couple of years ago, right after it had been repaved, and I don't remember. I wish I should go back and watch my footage. Maybe I can
I
learn.
did go back and watch it before the test.
Oh, oh, did you really? Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. It taught you probably absolutely nothing. I think I was going
It
50
didn't
miles
show
an
me
hour.
yeah, it didn't show me anything.
Useless.
Yeah.
Sounds about right for my channel. That's awesome. Good question there as well. I'm looking for that's coming up the week after. That's Easter weekend, right? That's in like less
Yeah,
than
it's
2 weeks.
soon. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to
Oh
it,
wow.
man. We were really good in the test for those that don't know, we were like top five at both practice. Like, well, they do in different sessions.
Sure.
And the last one I didn't, Mason Massey drove my car, which was fun to see him get out there and get some laps. But both of our cars, the 4 car and the 44, we were like in the top five the entire time, and the 44 car was third on lap averages.
That's
There were
pretty good.
26 cars at yeah, like we were really really happy with everything. So I'm hoping we can go there and kick some butt.
Casey Kane going to be in that race as well. Kind of random, but pretty cool. Pretty fun. Final question here from 2448 Aviation. This is a question more for you, Brennan, because you've had, I think, experience with both in your NASCAR career. What's it like traveling for a smaller race team compared to a bigger team? Because we see that the
Yeah.
Cup Series stars have their fancy motorhomes most weeks, but that's not the case for like everyone in the field, right? Like, how can you tell us? What's your like weekend routine look like?
Well, I think when you're on a big team, right? If you don't have your own jet, you fly on a chartered plane, and there are a couple of companies that do it that the teams use. So you might be flying with a couple of other teams on the same plane as you, and we fly out here in North Carolina, a little private airport, and we typically land at another. Sometimes it's at a big airport, but with like a private section, right? And all the rental cars are parked out there for you already. You kind of get off the plane, get your stuff, walk out, get the keys to the rental car. Sometimes the keys are just in the rental car, and then you go and get your car. And then after the race weekend, you kind of bring it right back. Like right after the race, it's almost like everything that we do is a race, right? It's like a race to get to the track first, and then a race to get to the plane first afterwards. So like, you kind of everyone, you help load up and do all that stuff, and then you get in the rental car and go back to the plane and get on and fly home. Pretty simple deal. Makes things really convenient and nice. The smaller teams, it's not always in the budget to be able to do something like that. So we typically just fly commercial. And a lot of times we just leave right out of Charlotte here. I park my car in one of the lots and fly there and after the race, sometimes you can't get a flight home after the race, right? Or if it's at a really weird time or it's a red eye, we do have had to fly red eyes quite a bit, which makes it hard on the guys because you get, it's tiring.
You can lose a day at the shop potentially,
Yeah,
or it puts you behind. Yeah.
Or the guys are working tired, which can cause mistakes. So we've had to do that. I mean, I've had to do times, where I'm at the airport at 3 in the morning when I ran the race the day before. And it's just tough. But you got to do what you got to do. And, this year we've been fortunate enough because that we have been, sharing with another Xfinity team that has multiple cars. And, we have the Alpha Prime has 3 cars. We've been sharing the Rick Ware plane. So we've been able to be a part of the charter system, and that has been like it's been really really nice for everybody. But a lot of these weekends we don't use the plane. Like we drive to Atlanta and Darlington and Rockingham and Bristol, and so like all these races here these next several weeks we just drive to. Like Bristol's 3 hours from my house, so I'll just drive there. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. Atlanta is 3.5 hours. Darlington's an hour and 50 minutes from my house, so it's like
It's
you
a truck
just
race.
don't. Yeah, yeah. You just drive. You just so and that saves money too, right?
Yeah,
Like some
yeah.
of the big teams will. Like a lot of teams fly to Atlanta. Teams fly to Bristol. We just don't do that in order to save the money because it's quite a bit cheaper. So there are still some differences that we do to save money.
That's interesting. I knew about teams sharing planes and things. I did not know that the like rent. I think it was it might have been the Athletic, Jordan Bianchi, or I forget who it was now. I don't want to shout out credit the wrong reporter, but somebody did an interesting article recently on the like rental car rat race, if you will. And I had no idea it was such like a. I just assumed someone from the team had to wait in the Hertz line like I do sometimes, and get the keys for everyone and then go out and meet them. I had no idea that it was like kind of coordinated as well
Yeah.
as it seems like it is for especially a lot of the middle and bigger teams. That's a great question as well. And I like that their name 2448 Aviation. Probably really interested to hear how the air
flying
travel
works.
works. Yeah. Good stuff. Thank you all for leaving fan questions. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave a question in the comments below. Brennan and I will do another show here in the next few weeks, and we would love to answer whatever questions you may have. But this was a great episode, Brennan. Really fun stuff. Excited for Bristol. Dash for cash. A lot on the line. Not to put any pressure on you, but it's going to be a big weekend down in Bristol Motor Speedway. Fun track, fun weekend. Should be a good time. This was a good show.
Yeah, this was awesome, man. Thanks for all you do for the show. Thanks to all the fans and the listeners. Yes, please. Those fan questions were awesome, guys. So give us some more of that. And shout out Toxic Waste. You see it. I'm going to be taking my Toxic Waste barrels down to Bristol. They're coming with me for the Dash for Cash.
Perfect road snack. Yes. Shout out to Toxic Waste. Hazardously sour candy, helping power Sour Power Hour every single episode. Brennan, this was awesome. Ryan Preece was awesome. Everyone have a great rest of your week. Have a great time at Bristol, and we'll catch you next time on Power Hour.